Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Kurt Vile LP on A Pretty Daze. Kurt Vile is a Philadelphia guitar player and singer-songwriter who first started gaining momentum in the late 2000s on a wave of popularity for lo-fi and home-recorded music. Though the album Constant Hitmaker in 2008 was not Vile's first LP, it was an album where you could hear him honing in on this sound that he would refine on later releases. Now this LP in particular had a lot of just bare, simple, indie folk tunes that sometimes were very straightforward and minimal, and other times very psychedelic, layered, and hazy. That more psychedelic side of Vile's musical persona was growing as he put out more releases until about 2010 when he really sort of had his first big breakthrough with the album Smoke Ring for My Halo. An album that I did not review the year it came out, mostly because of just some very strong negative reactions to a few characteristics. For one, though I did like that the production was very sort of lush and hazy and very psychedelic, it made a lot of the songs feel so uniform throughout. And on top of that, I didn't really feel all that much love for Vile as a lyricist. Though I haven't always been impressed with Vile's stuff once I dig a little bit deeper into it, I've always thought that there is a certain charm to his slow, toned down, drawled out vocal style. He always tries to surround himself with the most vibrant sounds that he can, and his voice sort of explains things as he's singing in an inflection that's reminiscent of someone like Lou Reed. I like these things about Kurt's style, but there are times when I listen to his music and I feel like he keeps his lyrics, his song structures, and his melodies ultra simple just for the sake of maintaining this style and maintaining this vibe, this very sort of psychedelic homogeneous vibe that is really only interesting on a surface level. And even though that sort of lucid and very subdued vibe continues onto this new LP as well, in a way Kurt kind of turns a new leaf and becomes surprisingly ambitious on a lot of these tracks on this 70-minute album. Itchy! Some of the psychedelic haze gets put on the back burner with some of these tracks in favor of some stomping bass lines, a little bit of cowbell, some very sharp guitar leads and phrasing. It's definitely reminiscent of artists like Bruce Springsteen or even Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. This is especially true of a track like KV Crimes, where the guitar phrasing on this song feels almost like arena rock guitars, but of course they're sort of very lightly distorted and modestly played. But the bass line, man, it really struts out there on this track, locked in step with the drums like it is the cock of the walk. The song Shame Chamber, too, is one of the catchiest and most concise songs Kurt Vile has written yet, really stepping beyond the psychedelic sounds and writing a song that feels really confident. Strong hook, strong riffing, and a very clear, emotional message coming through on the lyrics. And on the song Snowflakes Are Dancing, it feels like some of Kurt's old ideas are being revitalized to be something way more straightforward and just sharp. Some very Neil Young inspired chords on this song. The song is kind of psychedelic, and the drums behind this track really punch through the haze and drive this song confidently, which is kind of an idea, a style that Kurt has explored on previous tracks as well as in the band The War on Drugs. Kurt's voice is front and center on this song too. He is a very convincing vocalist in my opinion. Not necessarily the best singer in the world, but he's very sincere in a lot of his songs. My only issue with this track though is I'm not really in love with some of the lyrics. Snowflakes are dancing, Discman is pumping, headphones are loud, chillin' on a pillowy cloud. While you're at it, add some Doritos and a blanket and some slippers or a cup of chamomile tea. You know, honestly, when it comes to lyrics, I'm not incredibly picky. I don't need a lot of flowery language. If you're a longtime viewer of my reviews, you may know at this point that I don't even really dwell over lyrics that often. But there are some times where I feel like the lyrics are unignorable on the song because they come off as just being so vapid. Like on the song Too Hard, where Kurt seems to be making all of these promises just out of nowhere. He promises to smoke less. He promises to do his best for his God and his country. He promises not to party too hard. Then later into the song, he says that a man has to hold tight to the heart of the matter at hand. And, you know, I agree. Throughout this track, Kurt makes a lot of promises to himself or someone else, I'm not sure, and just a lot of agreeable statements about maybe life or just his philosophy, but it doesn't really seem like it's pointing to anything. Thankfully, the production and the instrumentation is gorgeous. It's just kind of disappointing to see how beautiful the sounds and just the instrumentation is on this album. It's blissful, it's heavenly, but then some of the lyrics just are so plain. This is the case as well in the song Was All Talk, where Kurt kind of falls back into his old ways by writing a song that sonically feels pretty homogeneous from beginning to end. The production is slightly more lush than the stuff from Smoke Ring, and I do like that the song is a little hypnotic, but Kurt spits out this one line where he's like, "Making music is easy, watch me." If that was the point Kurt was trying to prove with this song, I agree. I feel the same way about the song Airbud too, with how homogeneous it feels from beginning to end. Not quite so bad. There are some very fat synths that pop in and out of this track that I like. Again, these are not really terrible songs in my opinion. I just feel like they could be more interesting, especially with what Kurt brings vocally. Thankfully, that's really it for the songs on here that I feel sort of indifferent toward. Other tracks on here, the vast majority of the tracks on here, I actually think are great. Like the opening track on this thing, the 9-minute On a Pretty Day, a really awesomely groovin' and sublime folk rocker. Sharp guitar leads all over this thing, cut through the psychedelic haze. I love the stop that they do in the middle of this track, the sort of segue that they play into immediately after that feels almost Lynyrd Skynyrd inspired. The song Girl Called Alex appeals to me as well in a lot of the same ways. The song Never Run Away is one of the sharpest singles Kurt Vile has written yet. One of the shorter songs on this LP, really catchy refrain, verses with a lot of momentum being driven by some rhythm guitar and just very punchy drums. And another track I love on this LP, the 10-minute closer Goldtone, which is a spot on this album where Kurt again goes back into that sort of personal musing mode of his, where he's giving a lot of personal thoughts, feelings, but on this song they come off in a way that feels sort of reasoned or sensible, in a way that the listener can actually relate or just understand where Kurt is coming from. He says right at the beginning of the song that when he gets into his zone, he gets into this mental state where if you saw him it would seem as if he is high, but so he says in the song, he's never touched the stuff. Then he goes on to say this personal pain that he feels, he tries to basically exercise it, get rid of it, dump it through creating gold tones, just pretty sounding music, sounds that he feels are beautiful or sweet, which to me says a lot about the makeup of this album philosophically and musically. It's basically a behind the scenes look at Kurt's mental state when he goes into the songwriting process. But aside from the mental state of this track, the instrumental is beautiful as well. Again, a sublime instrumental closing out this album. I'm absolutely in love with the instrumentation on this thing. It is so lovely. Is there vibraphone on this track? It is so pretty. With that, the acoustic guitar, the bass, the drums, the vocals, they all blend together into yet another haze. And yes, there is a lot of haze on this album, but there's a lot of detail and lushness to the haziness. I mean, it's all just so dense and detailed. And that's what I really love about this LP. Though I don't think this is a perfect album, it is Kurt Vile's best yet. And there is reason to believe that his next album could be even better, because up until this point, with every new release, Kurt Vile has improved upon what he did before. He shows more and more ambition every year, and even though I haven't been a huge fan of Kurt Vile's for a majority of his career, that does make me excited for the future. I'm feeling a light 8 on this LP. If you've given it a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, On a Pretty Daze, forever.